Greetings, dear ladies. I am Kryon of Magnetic Service. My partner steps away. If I could highlight anything for you, today as you sit in this beautiful chapel in the village called Unity, the energy of the moment is different than the last time or the time before. And so the subjects are different. Some of them are guided by Meliha, and she will offer suggestions, some are not. And then there's always that which the energy defines for you. Let's talk about some of them. Let's speak about patterns. The group of women sits in a room in something called the Lemurian Sisterhood. I'll tell you something we've never discussed before. What is the gender that would be that which would be most comfortable for you? Now, as you sit here, you'd say, well, it's the gender I am. But you've been many. The gender issue is a big one. For if you really have been on the planet for thousands of years, you have gone through the transition many times. Believe it or not, all of you, many times, have been male. And when you were male, you would have said, this is the best gender. I'm the most comfortable. And that is by design. But there's something we haven't spoken of before. Your Akash rings with truth on one specific gender, and that would be the one where you awakened and were first given the truth. And on this planet, that's one or the other gender for every single human. In Lemuria, it was the gender when you received the information for the first time on this planet in an awakened state, with those who were Pleiadians teaching you. Can you imagine how that etched itself into a pure Akash? The sisterhood begins there. That's what you remember. You're not just fond of your gender, it's the sacred part of you. That's when you were taught. That's the purity of it. And that's what many of you are drawn to at this moment. Imagine when you learned about the stars. Imagine when you learned of divinity, that you were different than you had been in another energy. Your Pleiadian teachers told you you would reincarnate, and you did. Many of you, through history, have had experiences with this sisterhood because of that opening. Even when Lemuria was gone, you remembered it in such a way so that the islands perhaps you went to and lived on, even in a reincarnated form, you attempted this, what is being done right now. And through the ages, this is what unifies you. And this is what's in your remembrance. I'll say it again, you weren't all together in the same time or the same year. But in the spirit of where we are, what unifies you? It's the history of what you did with that original information and how it actually senses today within your Akash. Meliha speaks up and says about women and their voice. What do you have today? What did you have then? Let me ask you this, with all that you've known through all of these channels, and who you were and what you did you have to speak out then? And the answer is no. You see, there was an assumption. It was guaranteed. It was intrinsic. It's the way things were. That society saw women as the spiritual leaders. Men had their role, and perhaps, it was as today in political leaders. But believe me, behind the scenes, all the decisions that were important were women's business. It came from you. That symbiotic relationship of respect and acknowledgement of who you were means that you didn't have to work very hard for it. That is to say, you didn't have to stand and speak up and remind anybody of who you were. What shone through was who you were, and that was enough. Thousands of years go by, and there's some other puzzle, a pattern. Where was the Lemurian sisterhood 10 years ago? And you might say, well, there wasn't one. At least not one that you could recognize. You still remembered it, but it wasn't until you got to 2012 that you realized that in this new energy, there would have to be a rekindling of some semblance of the sisterhood. And it's not the sisterhood you're going to rekindle, it's going to be awareness of who you are. So if you ask the question, what would women do today in order to help recreate the awareness of who you are and literally what you can do? It's not going to be to speak out. Not really. Not with that which is abusive to the system. Not which is then interruptive of the family. That's old. You've got something better. Dear ones, there's going to be a beginning of a way of speaking out that cannot be ignored. And that's going to be with incredible balance and wisdom. So much that families will turn to you. Men will start seeing you differently. Very differently. Society in general will start to see the balance and the wisdom that they never did before. And there are several reasons why. One is the time is right for it. Literally, the field is starting to create it. Two, the remembrance is needed and necessary for society. It's being done in other places. Why not here? Number three, there is a literal shift of energy, a masculine and feminine, that would allow society to see things they've never seen before. What is it, do you think, in an elevated consciousness that would be seen first? Would it be you standing on a box with your rights and yelling? Or would it be an enormous wisdom starting to come through and attracting everyone around it to words that mean something, processes that work, and love like they haven't seen before? Love of everything. Love is balance. And people would turn to you and say, how do you do it? What is it that you have where you can be such a cheerful and loving human being and at the same time have such leadership qualities? It's the return of who you were. That is the new speaking out. Kryon, are you saying that we're just supposed to do as we always did and be quiet, and that they'll discover us? I didn't say be quiet. The discovery will happen. What you're doing is not necessarily that silent, because when you carry this kind of power and wisdom, there will be speaking out, but it will be in the way that doesn't interrupt the harmony of the group. It's a speaking out with wisdom. Sometimes in that which you show, which is balanced and wise, the only speaking out will be to speak a truth that makes total sense. There'll be a silence when people realize that's the answer. You're in a group that's trying to sort things out. Perhaps it's even a group that's at one another because they have different opinions. And then you come along with something that makes total sense, that doesn't create that which is against each other, which puts people together, which is fair and balanced. And they look at you, and inside they go, why didn't we think of that? It is the beginning of what you had. Remember, society saw it. There was no question who you were. That is the return. That is your speaking out. The exercises that you do now, sending your voice in song, all of these things, metaphors for the time that is coming, which is yours. Dear ones, we've said it before, these are not times where things will happen immediately. You are preparing for the next lifetime, as well as planting seeds for this one, for the return of a very, very wise and beautiful feminine energy. The planet is starting to receive you better than it ever has before. It's coming. Won't it be great to have it come slowly, naturally, that you'll be seen for who you are without ever having to stand up and yell about it? That is the new way. Imagine a time when spiritual growth in places all over the planet will expect to see a woman stand up and be the leader of the group. The soft one, the one who knows about life, the one who's given birth, the one who is connected first in a gentle way with a creative source. It makes total and complete sense. That's it for now. And so it is.